con nosotros hoy. Le quiero dar las gracias por su compromiso, no solamente a su situación específicamente como individuo, sino para mejorar a todos los que están trabajando en nuestra ciudad de Nueva York. Gracias por estar aquí a todos ustedes. I'm proud to be here once again. The reality is that over the past few years we have taken great steps to make our economy fairer for the people of the city of New York. With the many folks that are here today and many more, thousands more, who I have worked beside so that we can make sure that the city of New York had a Fair Wages for New Yorkers Act. Today, we stand united, and I stand united once again on an issue that is just as critical to our city as the fight for the living wage. Today, I stand united in support of the legislation for paid sick leave for all New Yorkers, known as Intro 97. I stand here united because statistics show that the need for paid sick leave legislation is a necessity, not just across the Bronx, but in the entire city of New York, especially in the Latino communities. The reality is that we see more and more serious health issues in our city. That must be addressed. Yet, too many of our workers, particularly low-wage workers in our communities, have to sacrifice either their pay, check, or sacrifice their health. And no one should be forced to make that choice.
That's right.
Statistics show us that among all races in the city of New York, Latinos are the least likely to have the jobs that provide a paid sick day. In other words, only 54% of Latinos have the employment opportunities where they can have a paid sick day. More importantly, and more unfortunate, is that Latinas, only 49%, less than half of the Latinas that are working in the city of New York actually have a job that pays them whenever they call in sick. That, ladies and gentlemen, is totally unacceptable.
That's right. That's right.
These are moms. These are individuals who have to decide whether they take their kid who may have asthma, bronchitis, or other respiratory ailments and take them to the hospital, or whether or not they get the flu, or whether or not they're going to go and get tested in a mammogram. Think about the message that we send if we don't have this piece of legislation. I stand here today with two champions in Councilwoman Gail Brewer and Dan Garodnick, who have introduced this legislation. I stand with them because they have shown the courage and the commitment and the fairness, because time and time again, for those that are naysayers, these two council members have gone back to the drawing board and have been able to negotiate and to compromise to make sure that we have something reasonable that not only the employers, but as well as the employees can live with. And so the time has come, ladies and gentlemen, because we need to ask ourselves one simple question. Is it fair what's happening to the workers of the city of New York? No! Is it the right thing to do to give a paid sick day to the workers of the city of New York?
Yes!
And let me just leave you with this. This is politically popular. This conversation that's happening here with this issue and in the city of New York is a microcosm of the debate and the conversation that's happening nationwide as to whether or not government has the responsibility to make sure that we balance economic growth with making sure that the employers and the employees are benefiting equally. And so when you look at the polls show that 73% of all New Yorkers favor a paid sick leave for their workers. The polls show, and I represent the largest amount of Latinos. I represent a borough where over 700 Latinos reside. The polls show that 84% of all Latinos in the city and 80% of the people of my borough support this legislation. So now, the reality is this, that this year in a couple of weeks, or less than 2 weeks, we're going to vote on a national level. Next year, there are going to be citywide elections here in the city of New York. We're not going to vote on popularity. We're not going to vote on personality. We're not going to vote based on what the media tells us is the front runner or who has the most money in their account. We're going to cast our vote depending on who we know have been there with us time and time again. So for anybody
Yes.
who wants to run for mayor, comptroller, public advocate, or whatever, they need to be on notice. They better start supporting a paid sick leave
That's
right now. Brevemente, quiero decirle que hoy nos encontramos otra vez con un tema que en los últimos años se ha debatido en la ciudad de Nueva York, y es el tema a ver cómo nosotros podemos crecer la economía y hacerlo en una forma donde beneficia no solamente la gente que son empresarios, sino los trabajadores también. Las personas que crean trabajo en la ciudad de Nueva York, ellos necesitan saber que le beneficia a su negocio si ellos le dan un día pagado de enfermedad a su empleado. Lamentablemente y desafortunadamente hemos visto que en la ciudad de Nueva York la población que sufre más, donde no tienen la oportunidad de estar enfermo en su casa y que le paguen, es la comunidad latina. Y eso no lo podemos aceptar. Esto es las encuestas nos enseñan que más del 70% de la población de la ciudad de Nueva York están en favor de esta legislación. Nos enseña que más del 80% de los latinos y los residentes del condado que yo represento, el condado del Bronx, están a favor de esta legislación. Estamos aquí hoy apoyando, dejándoles y avisándole a cualquier persona, sea la portavoz del consejo, sea a cualquier candidato, que el que no está con nosotros el año que viene, nosotros no vamos a estar con ellos.
Así es.
Estoy aquí con el concejal Rodnick. I try to say it in Spanish. We'll get it in Spanish. Y la concejal Brewer, le estamos dando las gracias porque ellos han sido campeones y son la gente que presentaron y sometieron este proyecto de ley. Estoy aquí porque otra vez estamos con la coalición de las personas que quieren ver cómo la ciudad sí puede progresar, sí quiere seguir adelante, pero a la misma vez hacerlo en una forma donde todos juntamente como ciudad podemos beneficiar. I'll leave you with this. There are going to be a lot of naysayers. There are going to be people writing about whether or not this is good for business. There are going to be people writing on whether or not we're right or wrong on the issue. The fact of the matter is that whenever you talk to an honest businessman or businesswoman, that honest businessman or businesswoman allows for the employees to take off and they pay them for those sick days. That's number one. Number two, the individuals, everybody, anybody, somebody challenge me on this one. Anybody who's against this and says we should not do this, if they work, their family members, their friends, they are the same individuals who can take off on a sick day and get paid for that sick day. There has been not one person who can tell us that they're against this piece of legislation who is not getting paid whenever they get sick.
Thank you.
And so if it's good for them, it's good for the workers throughout the city of New York. Thank you.
Mr. Borough President, you have been standing, be it Kingsbridge, be it paid sick leave, be it workers' rights, you've been standing up from day one, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. We've been on these steps with every single one of these individuals, Councilmember Debbie Rose, like so many times, and it makes a difference. I can't thank you enough for all your support. I think we've been here 150 times, and we will be here until this legislation passes. We feel whether it's a public health bill, it is a bill for workers, but it's a bill for the whole city of New York. It's actually 83% of New Yorkers support this legislation. People want to go to the restaurant, they want to go to the retail, and they want to be on the subway, and they want to be healthy. Guess what? If you're a teacher, if you're a principal, if you're a school nurse, if you're a parent, you want the whole school to be healthy. And It is good for business. If the retail is healthy, if the restaurant is healthy, then the whole entire kitchen is healthy. What's happening, as the borough president indicated, people who are against it, sometimes half the management or all the management has paid sick days and they're against it. The workers don't. The workers in that firm don't. And of course, they need it. Can you imagine not being able to pick up your child if that child is sick? It is unthinkable. And the people who are against it, every single one of them, I promise you, has paid sick days. We are saying to business, we're compromising. We have a compromise. In addition, those businesses that have a bucket approach, paid sick days or personal days or vacation days, you're fine. You have a package. We're talking about the businesses where you can't take off no matter what. I want to thank the writer, New York Times, Michael Powell. He wrote a wonderful article yesterday talking about two people who have experienced getting fired or not getting sicker. Just talk to any emergency room doctor. Talk to a school nurse. You will hear story after story after story. So thank you everyone who cares deeply about this issue. I've been pushing it as a prime sponsor since 2009, and we will not give up until we have a bill that really supports and enhances the lives of workers who do not have paid sick leave. Thank you very much. What do we want? Where do we want it? Now!
Moving the program along, I want to acknowledge Councilmember Rose. I also want to acknowledge Councilmember Sarah Gonzalez, who has a representative here with us today. Up next, we have Councilmember Daniel Garodnick. Give it up.
Muy buenos días y gracias a todos. Mi nombre es Dan Garodnick. Estoy aquí, soy concejal de Distrito 4, al otro lado de la Parque Central de Councilmember Brewer. Y estoy aquí con un mensaje que es claro y sencillo. Es que somos neoyorquinos, no debemos escoger entre nuestros empleos y nuestra salud. ¿Es verdad? I wanted to thank, first of all, Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. for his support of this legislation. And of course, Councilmember Brewer, without whom we would not be here today. You cannot understate or overstate, you cannot overstate the amount of work that she has put into this legislation. She says it's the hardest thing she's ever done. There's no doubt this is the hardest thing that anybody would have to do, and so we really owe her a real debt of gratitude. So please join me. Gracias. Look, this bill is an important piece of legislation for New York City. We all know that. I've been a supporter of this bill since 2010. I've been frustrated that it has not moved. We now have some reasonable and responsible amendments to this bill, which has gotten it a hearing. We hope that we now will be able to push this message forward and push this bill forward. I'm a working parent. My wife works. We have a son who is in daycare. And yes, it sometimes happens that a child in daycare gets sick, correct? And that means, all the time in daycare in particular, and that means that we sometimes have to take off a day from work. We have to scramble, one of us, and guess what? We don't fear for our jobs. We know that our job will be there waiting for us in those cases of emergency. Well, no New Yorker should face that choice of taking care of a sick child and being able to survive in their job. That's what this is about. That's why this is so important. And so I want to say to everybody who's here today, we're going to count on you to come back. El primer día de noviembre. November 1st, we're coming back for our hearing. Please join us. We need to have your voices heard. Thank you to the advocates. Thank you, Jesus, for everybody for being here today. Thanks.
Give it up for Councilmember Rose.
Good morning. Good morning. You know, I really wasn't going to come out here this morning because I felt that we've stood here so many times and that the message is so clear that this shouldn't be necessary. So there's just two things that I think we need to say. This is a bill whose time has come.
That's right.
Whose time has come. And we have to realize that we can't compromise any further. This bill has been looked at, re-examined, and we've taken into consideration everybody's concerns, except for the people who don't have sick pay. And so when your child gets sick, there's a disparity in treatment. It goes back to New York. It's time for this bill to be passed.
That's right.
Yes. We met the requests of small business. It's time to stop half-stepping.
Right.
Let's move it on. Let's make the road. Let's go and pass sick leave. Thank you.
I'm here today on behalf of my sister. She can't be here because she has to work, and she is a caregiver for autistic children in Queens, and she doesn't get paid sick days. Not at all, not a single one. She's been, working there for 4 years, been promoted, has a supervisory position, but if she calls out one time, her entire finances for that month are messed up, No one would want her coming to work, being around the children sick, especially not her or the children's parents. So when she gets sick, she stays home, and it's hard for her to make ends meet. It's not right, and she's not alone. There's a million New Yorkers, at least a million New Yorkers, who lack paid sick days. And when they get sick, they're in the impossible position of choosing between their health and their income. Like my sister, they're mostly women, mostly people of color, and it's not right. New York deserves better. Everyone gets sick, and everyone deserves the time to take care of themselves.
Latinos workers are least likely to have paid sick days. In the Bronx and the Latino community, the highest asthma rates in the city. Everybody supports now paid sick days. The public is behind paid sick rate across income, across race and ethnic groups, across party lines. The majority of council members support paid sick days. The clergy in our city recognize that this is a moral imperative. Our worker needs to be treated with decency and respect. New Yorkers are united behind paid sick days.
The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
People.
United.